Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are now live.
Okay, I think we got one other email. It sounds like
It is fun.
yeah.
When the kids were really little,
I'm
I
on
could
it
go out.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I had tons of trick or treaters.
All right, folks, let's get going soon.
I just want him to go.
Evening, everyone. So this is a workshop. That's not a formal meeting. We don't have to do the formal stuff, but I'll observe who's here. So I see a full council, Jeff, Amber, Paloma, Pam, Dan, Lee. Do we have someone online?
Good evening, Mayor. Christian Gates with Keenan Bean.
Okay. And then is Molly excused? 'Cause she's
Yes,
away.
Molly is excused.
Yep, she's away. All right. And I see the city administrator, so thank you. So let's start working on the budget, and looks like, Mark, you're up first.
And just for people who are tuning in, we presented the budget at the first meeting in October, and what we generally do is we go through the 6 departments with the largest amount of assets and programs. So the last time we did highway, water, and sewer. Tonight we're going to be doing recreation, fire, and police. And I'll let Mark. Ben will be putting the presentation up just so some of your photos can be seen.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
2025 budget. I guess we're going to start with the overview like we did last year. Our department, those that are new or just coming back, we're a full-time year-round, or we're a full-time year-round department at this point, and we work within the city to provide programming and activities for the community. Amongst those things are after-school programs, a public pool, community activities. We work with plenty of partners in our community. A great deal of our work is with other organizations and entities that provide either recreational or community programming, and our support of that could be as simple as giving them meeting spaces or helping them with facilities, for example, all the youth sports organizations, et cetera. So it's, us working, to administer things and supporting those around us that do the same. So our staffing currently is we're at 3 full-time year-round staff. This year we saw the departure of Nate Smith, our long-term assistant director, who helped start and implement our after-school programming, and he left in June or July for a position in Poughkeepsie, and we've missed him. We're getting along. We're doing diligence to find a replacement. We've just basically got through a good stack of applications, so we're reviewing those currently, and we're hopeful to have that position filled in by year's end, and then get back to growth and expanding things. In the interim, my 2 current staffers, Kira Zimino and Heidi Harrison, have been, I just can't speak enough how much they've helped fill the gaps. And when you're down a staffer, it means everyone's working a little extra. So it was a busy summer for all of us. So we're hopeful to get that 4th position filled here soon and back to action. In addition to those year-round staff, we have essentially 2 teams of employees. Our after-school staff, which right now are staffing 3 sites. We typically started last year our 4th site at the rec center. Due to staffing issues and that position not being filled, we sort of shrunk back to 3. So we have, I believe, 7 staff currently over those 3 sites, and we're looking for a couple extra folks as well. And once we're all restaffed and back, we're hopeful to get that rec center site back open for expanded seating at all the locations. And our second team of staff that are seasonal or our summer staff. So we have camp counselors and lifeguards and support staff for the pool and activities. And they only work a couple of months in the summer, but they provide services that we had 6,500 swims this summer, so all those staff see a great deal more of the community maybe than the after-school staff. But between those 2 teams and our full-time staff, we're able to provide everything we provide on a yearly basis. So the highlights from 2024. Didn't feel like a highlight when it started, but we finally got our We Play Tot Park complete this summer. That was held up by some issues with a contractor that sort of dropped the ball. We were able to push through all of that and finally get pretty much a full renovation of that playground, which is used by many. So replacement of fences, the surfacing, play structures, new benches, new tables, new design, there's new walkways, stuff like that. The water and highway departments were essential in keeping the work moving and prepping us, prior to the slowdown and keeping it moving along the way. And by the end of it, we ended up working directly with the vendors that this one contractor would have used, and with them and, the help of DPW was there last week to install all the benches, and all this stuff was to be done by the contractor, but that didn't happen. So it took a little bit longer. I would like to thank also the community for their patience. They were incredibly patient through this process. It wasn't supposed to take as long. It was supposed to be about a 6-week project. It turned into a 6-month project. And the We Play community volunteers have been helpful in spreading the word that things were moving slow and we were working on it, and help design it and pick out, all the equipment and stuff like that. So, that was complete. I was on vacation last week. They put the finishing touches. I have a couple of signs to put up, and we can kind of call that complete. Our, sort of calendar throughout the summer and spring months, our community events and programs. We had our movies in the park over the summer months. Those got rained out a couple of times, but we got them all in. We expanded upon our citywide yard sale, which in the spring saw about 95 registered sales, which brings a lot of folks to town. The residents really like it. It's nice to clean out the garage and closets. And in addition to that, we added a fall sale. We had our 4th of July fireworks, and Earth Day cleanup and event, and our annual Arbor Day celebration, which is a small event, but helps us keep our Tree City designation, as well as celebrate the sort of trees in town.
It is my personal favorite event. So.
We had public pool hours this year where we were open for the 60 days, or pretty much July and August. We saw, I think, just under 7,000 swims, 7 days of operation. Free swim lessons again this year through the county grant. Our summer camp ran, almost flawlessly, and, we added a couple of weeks of camp to that. Our summer hoops program, we saw a big spike in activity this year with the second year of our girls division, and all the other divisions expanded a bit. So you'll see in our budget coming up that we've, expanded a little bit on the expense side to, sort of grow with the size of the program. And more importantly, the volunteer network has grown as well. So that's the only way we can get that program in is, the hard work of those volunteers. So it's nice to see new volunteers stepping up and continuing the hard work that's been going on for years. I highlighted the backyard tree and street tree program. If you weren't aware, we did a pilot this year, which we're going to expand upon for next year, but it made available to homeowners and residents of Beacon at a very affordable price native trees to be planted in their yards and stuff. So it does two things. It encouraged folks to plant trees. It helps bolster our annual numbers of tree plantings, and the program itself made the trees available for essentially wholesale, less, and on top of that, the city delivered them all to every household. So we got the delivery in from our wholesale nursery, and myself and a couple of the highway guys were able to load up a couple of trucks and got those out within, I think it took us less than a day to do it. So in total, I think there were about 40 trees that got planted on private property, and in addition to that, we put another, I think, 12 to 15 trees in the spring. So, we're trying to keep that count to 50 or more a year would be great. And this helps us do that, and allows us to do it in such a way that we're putting the trees in the ground that were native and around here. So, and lots of great feedback from folks. They were very happy about the pricing and the program itself. So, and a lot of people have never planted a tree. So the tree committee was able to help educate, and we provided little, planting tips and information guides when we dropped off the trees. So that was pretty neat, and we're just starting to dust off for 2025 and just see what type of trees we're going to select and where we can source them and stuff like that. So very positive feedback there. As far as 2025 goes, we're sort of in a rebuild year. Once we get Nate's position filled and back to full staffing, we should be back to normal operations. Not that this year was unnormal or not normal, but it felt a little, like we had to, sort of step back a little bit and focus on some things that weren't planned for or not. For example, we were to have the South Avenue project complete this year, and we just ran out of bandwidth.
Next page. Thank you, Ben.
What's that?
I was just trying to get Ben.
The one other capital project besides WePlay was the South Avenue renovation, which we pushed back to the spring of 2025 for a couple of reasons, but mostly because I couldn't get it out and around. So it's good timing, as it turns out. So the South Avenue renovation project is teed up for next year. It's a bigger project. We will be renovating both courts to include a lot of site work. If you're familiar with the park, there's some retaining walls, which I actually just found the documents a couple weeks ago were installed in probably 1981 under a federal grant, but those retaining walls have long been degraded. So they'll be all pulled, and we're going to re-slope the area, so there's no need for retainage there. It's going to, aesthetically, I think it's going to really change the corner of that park. All that site work also preps for a new public restroom, which will be installed. That we are ordering from a vendor as a prefabricated building. It won't be delivered to the spring of 2025 anyway, so we kind of, timing-wise, it seemed logical to do all the work next spring, and it gave us a little bit of time to prep for bidding and all that stuff. So court work, fencing, new lighting for the basketball court, the restroom, and sort of site amenities and plantings and stuff. So it'll be a pretty holistic, change to that park on that corner.
Just a quick question, Mark. Does the plan include seating for people who are watching the basketball game? Somebody asked if there was going to be seating included.
Like
bleachers.
I mean, it'll probably come from temporary, not temporary, but benches and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The first revision of the plan, we had sort of scoped in some earthen, bleachers. The scope of it was a little bit broad for the budget, so it's, eventually down the road, if we wanted to add that, it wouldn't be undoable, but right now we're, focused on, the one thing we are doing is changing sort of the approach to the court. If you know now, you get in on Route 9D, where the site work will include a patio or a flattened paved area around the restrooms, which will make for viewing, in a better setting. Right now, everything's sloped there, so it's tough to even find a place to sit a chair. So, kind of a roundabout answer to that is there'll definitely be a little bit better options for seating, maybe
Thanks.
not necessarily built in.
And Mark, the skate park, could you give a quick update?
Yeah. It sort of, 11th hour, the approval of the participatory budgeting money last year was to be used for renovation of the skate park. In talking to a few local residents and some other folks, it was decided we should probably do a little bit more than just patch some cracks and do a simple renovation. So the skate park itself, we're in the spring. Again, we were trying to get it in this fall. We just ran out of time, but we're going to repave the entire skate park. It'll include sort of the changing out of some fences and the ordering of new, more permanent fixturing. So it's really a 3/4 renovation of the park. So I think it'll be, it's very well received. The input we've gotten so far is that it's due time, and mostly because the plan to sort of partially pave or repair some of the crack work got sort of bounced a little bit farther down the road because the current fixtures, the stuff the kids skate on, were constructed of lumber, and you know, we've sort of lost our volunteer energy to keep repairing that. So we're deciding to go with you know, some steel structures and some stuff that have a, you know, almost 20-year lifespan. So I think we'll be making a much better, you know, area for kids to skate and congregate. And again, that'll be spring of 2025. We're going to jump on that. I kind of jumped ahead to that South Avenue project because it seemed logical, but you know, 2025 highlights to include our rec committee has been meeting a little bit more regularly, and we've set a goal from the last meeting to meet quarterly, you know, with a little bit better a plan to you know, create some agendas and some topics for discussion. The committee itself, our last meeting was incredibly productive. You know, I gave them some updates on the capital projects, and we you know, set some goals for 2025 to sort of, you know, hopefully create some new community events and you know, sort of discuss and/or shape what the role of this committee is to be, you know, as we move forward and look at a lot of this infrastructure repair and improvements to our park. So it's a good bunch, and you know, I'm happy that we finally got to a point where everyone's you know, sort of on board to meet and discuss sort of the recreation happenings here in Beacon. And I guess jumping to major items for 2025. And like years previous or last year, we sort of highlighted some of the bigger ticket changes up or down in our budget. And, you know, I did the same. So, you know, if I'm just to kind of walk down through those so you know what those bigger number or changes are. Our summer camp counselor line, you'll see a decrease in that of $11,000-ish. And this really it wasn't a, you know, a decrease in programming. It was more you know, looking at a couple of annual budgets, and you know, we were over budgeting ever so slightly, but the scope and size of the programming, you know, what we've proposed for 2025 will be adequate for, you know, continued programming at the scale we're doing. The after-school activity specialist line, you'll see again a decrease of $19,000-ish. That again is, you know, the way we've run the programming in the past, you know, relied heavily on, or a lot more than I think we've decided is needed, you know, activity specialists. So we use that to pay yoga teachers and art teachers and other specialists that come in. We'll be using them going forward, just in a smaller scale. There's a great deal we can do in-house. We have a good bunch now that is game for, you know, taking on some of those roles, and it was, you know, in sort of secondary to decreasing the budget, you know, we did, you know, increase all our after-school staff salaries this year, you know, a good amount, and folks were happy to see a raise, and, you know, are willing to help out, you know, help out a little bit more in that capacity. So, and Kira, who is, you know, working with the after-school directly, is really creating, you know, sort of templates and models for our staff there to follow to kind of keep the you know, program, you know, moving ahead in a positive manner. Lifeguards, just a small increase. We're seeing we need to be a little more competitive in our salaries, and the last couple years we've used some support staff that help with the grounds and prep, you know, work for the pool, skimming and all that stuff. So not an incredible increase, but we're just trying to keep current with the local, you know, sort of landscape for lifeguards. And a little side note, we were able to provide our own lifeguard certification courses this year at the pool, 2 of them. We made 9 new lifeguards, you know, so that was a positive sort of addition to the pool programming. In addition to just public hours, we're running certification courses, pool swim lessons, an aqua Zumba class, stuff like that. So we continue, the person we use for the certifications is local, so we hopefully have another year of lifeguarding courses that we'd like to offer, either in collaboration with the high school or again at our pool next season when it starts. Summer basketball, as I had mentioned earlier, there was a small increase there to sort of, you know, absorb the supplies and additional referees for a bigger program next year. summer camp program, again, a bump up in supplies. We were seeing just the need for, additional expenses related to special guests and supplies and stuff. And note, any of those programs have a matching revenue, so that sort of gets absorbed, in the tuitions we are able to charge. And then the last one, which was kind of a big ticket item, was the community investment program. You'll see a decrease of $20,000 there. This year's program, again, we didn't get it sort of turned around and into people's pockets until August or September, and it's directly related to my ability to administer that. I don't think I was able to get it out until the second quarter. My hope would be to, see a sort of sunset on this program and use the funding that we've used here historically to offset, some cost to residents for swimming.
And Mark, could you just tell the public and the council what we did with swimming this year in terms of the cost point?
Yeah. So for a couple of reasons, one of them being we didn't have we weren't able to implement a new sort of booking program, which got me to thinking, it's 11th hour, who we were using for the software just didn't come through, so we had to go back to our old ways. And in doing so, it became logical to make a household that's as big as a person said their household was, and to charge the household a very minimal fee. So for this year, for Beacon residents, a household pass, which meant swimming all summer whenever you wanted, was $20. As it turned out, that was the price point that sort of changed things. So we saw, a very, robust use of our booking software. We saw people, I think in total we sold 267 household passes. Under those passes, it was a little bit over 1,000 residents that used the pool this summer. 89% of, I believe it was like 89% of our swimmers this summer were Beacon residents, period. I think we had 176 non-resident sales. Not to say the pool isn't open for everyone, but it's a small resource. It's not a very big resource. So it was very nice to see that it was being used by residents 7 days a week. The feedback from the community was that, at that price point, it became a viable summer option for many, many families, and even to the point where, like I said earlier, people were happy to use the booking software. People were happy to let us know they weren't swimming. One of the hurdles from last year to this year, we found, was people were booking swim time under these passes, but most of the time they weren't coming. They were just kind of going, I can book 5 days in advance. If I go, I go. If I don't, I don't. Whatever we did to change that, I guess maybe the price point, or seeing that it was, super reasonable, didn't happen as much this year. Definitely our no-shows went down considerably, and and I haven't really figured out what the dynamic was, but obviously it's very affordable for households, and it made it people sort of vested in making sure, and either that or the light bulb clicked on and they go, if I don't cancel, then somebody kind of, and vice versa. I think we sort of saw the community kick in and use their resource in a way that was beneficial to everyone back and forth, so.
And
So
we're
question-
proposing,
Just a question to clarify, I guess. So if I think there just is no longer a community investment line item, so has this 20,000 been reallocated to another line item, and if so, which one?
it came out of the revenues. So
Okay.
we lowered the revenues on the pool by 15,000, and then there was something else we attributed the rest to. So we lowered it on the expense side, but then we also lowered what we anticipated collecting on the pool, knowing that we want to do the $20 household again.
Okay.
Are we doing questions now?
Sure.
Great. Just to start on that topic, since we were on it, were there any other programs that you considered using that $20,000 for? And can you help us sort of understand how you got to that proposal?
Not really. I mean, most of our other programming is tuition-based, so it's sort of the revenue and expenses match, you know, whether it's tennis or basketball, and all of those fees are, you know, for example, in the past, we've used a grant for the Beacon Hoops program. That year, we saw the worst turnout, you know, because there was no sort of money invested, or even if it's minimal cost, you know, people tend to stay involved. So in looking at our fee structure and looking at, you know, most of the other programming, I didn't see a need to sort of change that or decrease those. I didn't see a need to add more fireworks to the mix. You know, I think in watching what happened this summer at the pool, you know, like I said, 6,600 swims, you know, by 1,000 plus residents primarily, pointed to, you know, a sort of and a decrease in fees, considerable decrease from previous years, whether it was, you know, in the past it was $25 or $50 per person, you know, so add that into a household, you're looking at a few $100. So, you know, looking at all those factors, that resource in general serves, you know, more than anything I can touch, you know, besides open community events. You know, we see a few thousand people at fireworks or something like that. So it's, you know, the direct result every day, you could see, you know, people from Beacon showing up and using. And to me, it was obvious it was related to the fees we were charging, you know, and one of the smoothest running years. I was a little baffled by it all, you know what I mean? It was a great year at the pool, and, you know, and the community was there, and, you know, we're open 7 days. We didn't close too many, you know, nothing broke. You know, I was kind of like, what's going on here, you know?
Nothing broke.
You know, and in previous years, and again, it may have been the fees charged, but we spent a lot more time on the phone, booking time, or listening to the resident complaints about having to book pool time, or, you know, that wasn't the case this year. You know, we would guide people, or people had enough time with the system, and we tidied things up enough that it made it simple enough for them, or it's worth, you know, it's worth $20, you know, to do those things.
And we had really good feedback on that. So that and the free swim lessons that we do with the grant from Dutchess County every year.
Yeah. And I was really happy to hear that you're running certification courses for the lifeguards. I know when we talked about this a couple of years ago, it was really hard to find lifeguards at all. So this investment makes a lot of sense. I'm glad it's working.
Yeah.
Chris, can you remind me when our sort of agreement with the state about the settlement camp expires?
I think it's 2028.
Okay. So not imminent, but.
No, it's not imminent. And it doesn't necessarily expire. It rolls over
Right.
for another 20 years unless we take action or they take action.
I have more questions, but I want to leave space for other folks.
I was wondering, on the adult recreation, that budget went up. What additional items are you adding there?
We started last year as a sort of a pilot, a chair yoga program twice a week. So that's
What?
been a chair yoga program twice a
chair
week. Mondays
yoga.
and Fridays, we have a
But you
free
said
fitness.
chariot yoga.
Oh, chariot, yeah, chariot lessons. Chair yoga, which is, you know, it's accessible to everyone, but, you know, we see a lot of seniors use the program. So that over the course of the year, we've seen a very good attendance. So I'm working with that instructor. You know, I asked her if she could do it for another year, and she was, you know, over the moon to be able to provide it. So in addition to chair yoga, it's our senior art program. That was the only thing expenditure-wise that was needed. We have some other programming that's free through the county and run by volunteers a couple of days a week. So,
Do you coordinate that with the Friendship Center?
the Friendship Center, no, we have a couple of trained volunteers
Okay.
through the county Office of the Aging to
Okay.
provide these.
Do you
couple of-
advertise there? Do you advertise the programming there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Like the different programs that you offer for seniors, do you
Yeah.
advertise, like, do you like flyer at the
Yeah,
office?
yeah, we have it up on the
Great.
website, and we have a little bulletin board out front, which seems to get the most traction for whatever reason.
In the South Avenue, the tennis courts, is that going to be the same as it is now with the 2 courts and the pickleball?
I think
lines?
our plan, and we were waiting to sort of get rolling on it, but the plan was to try to put 4 courts down there, use portable nets. We're kind of investigating that. So in essence, it'll be a potential expansion of pickleball. It'll be marked on the tennis courts, there's no way to reconfigure the tennis courts, so tennis courts will stay intact, but in talking to the contractor, there's a possibility we can kind of turn those pickleball, and it'll just mean some additional fixturing that'll be similar to Green Street in that they'll have to be moved out of the way for tennis, but it would expand our ability to have a little bit more pickleball space in
The
town.
portable nets would be good because the nets at South Avenue are too
Yes.
high for pickleball, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
It makes it too hard for me.
Question for you on the Recreation Committee.
Yeah.
It open to the public, that meeting?
It's an ad hoc meet as needed, so I don't
But
we
let's
really
talk
crossed that
about a
bridge.
December meeting. Do you have a date for the December meeting?
I'd have to look on my calendar.
And
I think it's the second or third Wednesday. I don't see why it wouldn't be open to the public. I just don't think
Yeah.
we've ever thought about
It'd be
it.
great to have it on the calendar and just advertise so folks, I know there's a
Okay.
lot of folks who are really interested in what's happening with the programming in the rec center.
Okay.
My other sort of question, and what I had been thinking about with the $20,000, though what you said makes sense, is about our existing public restrooms. Can you remind me what the hours are of our bathrooms at Memorial Park and Green Street?
Yeah, they're, right now, we have funding in place. I believe we have funding to clean and operate them from April to the end of October, 7 days a week. Typically, they're open weekdays in the morning and weekends when one of the DPW guys comes through, so 7 or 8 o'clock, maybe 9 o'clock at the latest. I believe under contractor to be cleaned in the evenings, usually 6 or 7, again, depending on the days. Usually they're open till just about sunset. I know there's been a couple of times that they've been cleaned early and locked early, but I always call the contractor to remind them we're supposed to be open till 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah, they happen to not be open whenever I'm there, but that is, that could just be happenstance.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that that's sort of the policy. And it sounds like in that sort of maintenance regimen, there's no obvious way to expand the hours, since sort of the people who are doing that work are already doing other things on other schedules.
Yeah, I mean, we hadn't really talked about it going any later. In the summer months, it seemed, they're open for the better part of all day. In addition to those, after hours are portables within,
Yeah.
close proximity. We sort of double those up for the early season and those after hours. But yeah, most of the, I didn't hear much feedback besides them generally would be locked around 7 o'clock by the time they cleaned and stuff, And every once in a while I'd have, I think they were hoping to get out a little early, so I'd get a call that they were locked at, 5:30 or something, but that was quickly remedied,
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Under the budget lines of community outreach, can you say more about what that is for? It's $2,500.
Yeah, that community outreach line, I've generally used in support of committees and some other initiatives. Used it for the tree committee in the past. We've used it for the pollinator working group in the past, the trail committee, if we've had to print materials or signage or bought supplies for, planting, stuff like that. It's sort of a catch-all. I've often looked at it like that in support of other committees and initiatives in town that may need a little help or funding.
That makes sense.
That may
And-
not have been its historic purpose, but it seemed like a good definition of community outreach.
It's been very consistent over the last few years, whatever it's been spent on. And then celebration, which celebrations does that fund?
We use that over the course of the year for, in support of the tree lighting or holiday events. movies in the parks. We used it for Spirit of Beacon Day in the past for support of stages and sound systems. I've used it for the community cookout to book some entertainment in support of that event. So that's sort of the bulk of them.
Yeah, it's good to know that those, those chunks of money, even though we're taking away that community investment grant, there are these buckets of money that is accessible and is going directly to support community initiatives.
Mark, just a quick question while we're on the topic of the tree lighting. Are we making equal space available to other religious traditions in addition to the Christmas tree? There was a menorah, I don't know if I saw it last year, but are we doing more than just a Christmas tree?
Yeah,
Are we
I mean,
making
in the
space for
past,
that?
we've always been supportive. Last year was our first year over at Memorial, so I think at some point, the folks with the menorah had reached out real late in the game, but I believe they were able to install it at some point.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there'll be space there for any holiday.
Okay, thanks.
They just need to submit a permit so that we know something's coming and who's responsible for having put it there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
And I do just want to say Mark did a great job landing the plane on the We Play. That was a mess, and Mark worked through every piece of it and just kept on it till it got done.
Sounds like you became the clerk of the works. For the
Probably the larger of the capital projects I've been sort of entrusted to this year, and I was super excited when it started. I couldn't wait till it was over by the end.
So you never
but-
want to see
thank you,
another
Mark.
rubber play mat again?
No, I just took notes. I know where the moves are now, so.
I did find one more quick question. I
Yeah.
noticed the yard sale ad printing doubled. That's because we're doing 2 of those a year now, right?
Yeah, we tried the fall one, and I think by next year that'll be up. People were super excited to have that, so our plan next year is to do, spring and fall.
And there's a corresponding revenue for that too
Yep.
as well.
And that's minimal. Essentially, the expense line for that is what it cost us to print the signs folks put out.
Great.
And, in the fall, we actually worked, and we'll see if we can do it in the spring, but we worked with the Highlands Current, who printed the list for us on that Friday.
I saw that. That was nice.
Sort of as a,
Yeah, the live
Collaboration.
map is very helpful.
yes, they did a way better job than my map, so that's, we're going to revisit that for the springtime, too.
All right, thank you, Mark.
I just wanted to say my grandkids enjoyed the We Play Park, and I enjoyed the extra shading
Yes.
over the toddler apparatus, so.
Yes,
and the
it's going to be,
cushiony floor.
I'm curious to see, I think that just that simple top on the play structure will add enough, now it seems like there's shade there.
Yeah,
And the trees have grown up quite a bit in the last 5 years, so it's starting to feel, a lot
was
better
nice.
over there.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I think fire's next.
So next up is Chief Tom Lucchese for the Fire Department. And here's some updates on a little project that we've been doing lately.
So Mark, I appreciate your uniform, but his is sharper looking. But I like your uniform a lot.
I actually was going to ask where I can get one of those sweatshirts.
Yeah.
Mark sells them.
I would like one.
It's a revenue stream.
All right, thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me this evening. So today was a really exciting day for City of Beacon and City of Beacon Fire Department. Ben, if you want to put that up on the screen. This morning at 0700 hours, we occupied a firehouse for the first time. I'm very happy
Yeah.
to say and proud to say. We had 2 of our older, longtime volunteer members put the American flag up for the very first time. That's Dennis Leahy Sr. and Pat Kelleher. So they raised the flag at 8 o'clock this morning.
That's great.
So we broke ground for that project June 5th of 2023 after many, many, many years of planning. And
Only 20-ish.
you know the exact number? I truly don't.
It's 17.
3
I
studies
I know the
later.
exact number.
So I'm very happy to say that we're occupying the firehouse for the first time today. So City of Beacon Fire Department's mission is to protect lives and property by responding to fires, natural disasters, medical emergencies, and accidents. We're truly a all-hazard department. We enhance public safety, improve community resilience, and we're better prepared to handle a wide range of emergency situations. In 2023, we responded to just under 1,900 calls for service, including 15 structure fires. And we continue to boast one of the fastest response times in Dutchess County. Our staffing now, as of last week, includes the fire chief, 4 career lieutenants, 14 career firefighters. One of those members is on long-term accident leave, and we look forward to his return shortly. All of our career members, including myself, are cross-trained as emergency medical technicians. As with every volunteer or combination department, we are struggling with our volunteer members. Unfortunately, we have seen an 84% decline in volunteer members since 2018. We are currently down to 4 volunteer firefighters. Our only interior qualified volunteer member is our assistant volunteer fire chief. That means that he's the only one trained and qualified to enter a burning building. 2 of our volunteers are trained for support activities, like throwing ladders outside or helping hit hydrants. And one of our volunteer members acts as fire police. He helps direct traffic at fire scenes. Throughout the course of the last year, I attended several events at the high school, as well as recently attended a recruitment drive and spoke to senior class to try and recruit volunteers. In 2024, obviously our biggest project is our fire station capital project. This honestly has consumed probably 90% of my effort over the past year. I really owe special thanks to all the city departments, including DPW, finance, water department. Quite honestly, every single department, and I think every employee in the city helped contribute to this project. And without their collaboration, really been really hard to pull off. And working together, they saved a lot of money for the city. For the first time in department history, our members are responding at one central location, which will lead to a safer and much more productive fire scene. Another major project I want to highlight in 2024 continues to be our investment in emergency medical services in the city. In 2021, the state of EMS in the city was in crisis. It was not uncommon for people to call 911 and wait 30 minutes for an ambulance to show up. I've heard horror stories of people driving themselves to the hospital after waiting for an ambulance and not having one show up, as well as taking a taxi to the hospital. Since that time, in collaboration with the city, Beacon Volunteer Ambulance, and Beacon Medic One, which is a contracted paramedic ambulance through the company Ambulance, the city of Beacon now boasts the fastest response time for an ambulance in southern Dutchess County. We do have 2 ambulances available in the city 24 hours a day, with a 3rd ambulance available Monday through Friday during peak hours. And it is quite honestly not uncommon to have 4 ambulances running around the city handling calls at the same time. In addition to that, the fire department responds to all priority EMS calls and are often one of the first ones on the scene to initiate care. Some of the major changes in the budget for 2025 is employee physicals. This proposed funding increase is designed to begin to align our annual physicals with the nationally recognized requirements set forth through NFPA 1582. Compliance with 1582 promotes a proactive approach to wellness. It supports a culture of safety and ensures the fire department meets legal and occupational standards, which ultimately will enhance public safety. This increase of just over $4,000 will allow additional screening and testing to further align with the requirements of 1582. Additionally, maintenance of equipment will see an increase. This is primarily driven to the expected operating costs of operating a new firehouse. The new firehouse comes with a fire alarm system, a sprinkler system, a backup generator, a vehicle exhaust system, which all require annual testing and preventive maintenance. So the increase of just over 27% will primarily fund that. Additionally, just like in past years, we've seen a large increase in our retirement system funding. This cost is projected to increase just about 25% over last year, and this is set through the New York State Pension Fund. In summary, a well-funded fire department ensures a prompt and effective emergency response to fires, accidents, and medical incidents. This increased funding will allow our department to progress forward.
Can you, just on the physicals at NFPA, I assume that's, I don't know what that acronym is, some kind of
It's a
firefighting
nationally
protocol?
recognized standard, the National
Okay.
Fire Protection Association.
Okay. And were we just not doing that? Like we were
We're-
doing physicals, but not that
We're
extra step?
meeting the minimum requirements set through OSHA, which is federal regulations. And it's, NFPA 1582 is the nationally recognized standard, which is some additional testing.
Okay.
So to get to that point over the next few years, I want to incrementally increase our testing requirements, which will help pick up cancer, heart-related issues faster.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you say, explain a little bit more in terms of the maintenance of equipment? Maybe this is a Susan question, but is that including all 4 firehouses or just the new firehouse, or how are we? How is the budget shifting in terms of the fact that all our operations are in one firehouse instead of multiple firehouses into next year?
Sure. So over the last approximately 2 years, we've been operating out of the firehouse at Mace Hook and Ladder,
Right.
located on Main Street, as well as temporarily located at DPW. So as of today, we're operating across the street. So the funding increase is for all the new systems in that building, which does require annual testing and inspections and preventive maintenance.
And just to clarify where we are with our assets, we had 3 firehouses. One of them was Tompkins Hose. That's the one we rebuilt.
Right.
Beacon Engine was closed about 2 years ago and is slated to be sold at the end of the year. Maze Hook and Ladder is now vacated as of today. There's still some stuff there. None of the older firehouses had these exhaust systems. None of them had sprinklers. So that was one of the principal reasons for doing the project, is we weren't meeting any of the NFPA standards. We didn't have enough room to house our apparatus. There was no decontamination area. So a lot of the new things are bringing us up to modern standards for a department that has people that do this full time. You know, it's one thing when you're a volunteer and you only go to so many fires. Our staff now are full-time, and so we really have to think about the cumulative impacts of their exposures of, for instance, having the apparatus running inside. Now we have an extraction system that makes sure that they're not being exposed to those emissions, and in fact, if you see the door go up automatically, it means the carbon monoxide got too high in the apparatus bay. So there's a little bit more of a cost to maintain those systems and make sure they're in good working order. One thing Tom didn't mention is we have an elevator. We had no elevators in the other buildings. So we've gone up a level, and we need to kind of maintain yearly inspections on all of those.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, and I'm sorry, I asked my question a little sideways. And I think what I'm getting at, that is very helpful information, is understanding what we're currently spending on maintenance of the buildings we're not using.
We're spending something on it, but we'll be moving towards zeroing those out.
Okay.
So
But
all
that's
of
reflected here.
Yes, it's net out. We had every intention of selling these, and in fact, in looking at how to pay the outstanding balance of the firehouse, the sale of those 2 firehouses has been incorporated into our planning to figure out how much debt we're going to take and how long.
To clarify, is building maintenance in this budget for fire, or is it just equipment maintenance?
This is just for the new firehouse. Traditionally, we budgeted for maintenance in the Public Buildings Department, which Mickey Manzi maintains. So But to answer your question, it was very minimal what type of maintenance we were doing on those buildings. And there's only currently $3,000 in for next year. That's just to get it to the end result.
But the trailers, for instance, at the highway department was in the DPW budget.
No, it was in the capital budget,
It was charged to the capital project.
Thank you.
because it was directly related to the fact
Exactly.
that the two
Oh, right.
staff who were positioned here needed to be somewhere else at night.
Yep. Yeah, and just to be clear, right, we had 2 sleeping over at Mays and 2 over at the highway department, who are now all located across the street. Okay. Yeah, and just for clarification, my first month as mayor, I announced the closing of Beacon Engine and an investment in some facilities at Mays to make it doable, because we needed to be able to sleep 2 there. And then we just pretty much stopped with maintenance
Right.
until we were done with this, and now we're going to sell the 2 buildings.
Can you just explain what the Kelly Days are?
Oh, this is a
Yes,
good one.
certainly.
It's you?
Yes.
All right.
I love this story.
A traditional worker works 2,080 hours a year, depending on if it's a leap year or not. Due to the traditional firefighter schedule of working a 24-hour shift on with 72 hours off, they work an average of 104 hours more a year than a standard worker, depending on if they worked the January 1st or not. My understanding, in 1994, the union negotiated additional payment for that away, and in the last collective bargaining agreement, they negotiated to get that back incrementally.
And it was phased in, so it was I think, did we do a 4 or a 5 year?
4.
4-year contract, and it was phased in quarters. So we did 26 hours the first year, then 52, then 78, and now we're at full Kelly days.
Okay.
So in
That
essence, they
explains
were
the
working,
increase.
Yeah.
yeah, they were working 104 hours for free, you know, for
And,
some
and
years.
at the time, we also saw that that would avoid any future labor claims, because there's been some movement in the industry towards ensuring that those hours be paid, and we wanted to make sure we were on the right side of that.
Can you remind me what volunteer service award P something is for
Program.
57,000? Program.
LoSAP.
Is that
Yeah,
LoSAP?
This was a service awards program for our volunteer members as a incentive or a stipend for them to volunteer. They had to meet a minimum percentage. Of our 4 volunteers, there's 1 taking advantage of it or meets the minimum, no, I apologize, 2 who meets the minimum requirements. But we're still paying out all the older volunteer members who are no longer active, who did for many years serve the city.
So it's a pension contribution program.
And it's very small. I mean, they get a certain amount, maybe it's $20 for every year of service per month. So at maximum, I think it's $400 a month.
I'm remembering this from last year now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know
And
the line doesn't
over time,
really
if we
show.
don't, have new volunteers that are eligible for it, it eventually work its way down.
What is the target for volunteers? Is there an ideal number of volunteers that you'd like to have, that you have capacity for? That
It would be an easy argument to fund any additional volunteers. Ideally, I would love to have a full complement of volunteers. I am a realist, and
Well, which is what? How many is that?
I would love to have dozens of volunteers. Unfortunately, if we see 1 volunteer on a call, that's a lot. We do many, many calls without a volunteer there. I would love to have a full contingent of volunteer members. Reality is, it's a nationwide problem. It's not a problem in Beacon with people not volunteering.
And the increased demands on training, what's the minimum training now for firefighter 1?
Yeah, you're looking at 120 hours just to walk through the door of the very basic training to be an asset on the fire scene. So it's a really high additional training demand.
Yeah.
We're seeing nationwide, for every 10 volunteers who join, if you have one after a year, you're lucky.
Is there a cost for that? Does a volunteer pay for that training, or is there any other cost
No,
for?
the city will incur all that cost.
So I think we're going to focus on rebuilding that core now that we have the centralized firehouse open. We have a good place to train and to recruit. And I think we're going to go for quality over quantity. Like you get a good, you get somebody like Chief Leahy, Assistant Chief Leahy. He's worth a lot of volunteers who otherwise might just come through our ranks. Great. And I just want to thank the chief for the incredible job he's done since he got to Beacon. He took the baton from Chief Van Voris on this project, and he ran with it, and has just caught so many different things that almost fell through the cracks and didn't fall through the cracks. So from ordering equipment to making sure certain alarm systems and sensors were put in, communications equipment, IT stuff, all of the furnishings. Tom has taken care of all of that, and I have no idea how we would have done that without you.
Well, thank you, but it's truly been a team effort from everyone.
Take good care of the building.
We will.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Chief Tom Figlia.
Chief, when is the dedication for the firehouse?
November 16th at 11 a.m.
So Saturday, the 16th at 11?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make
You
sure.
will be
we
getting
remember.
invites out shortly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Tom's a hard act to follow.
Yeah, we thought about, I don't know, both
The two
times.
most beloved of city
They're pretty good on their
services.
feet.
Here we go.
Take care of them.
Thank you guys for having us here tonight. The City of Beacon Police Department provides 24/7 protection and service to the community, ensuring public safety and a peaceful quality of life for the residents, visitors, and businesses. The department provides support for an array of public events such as parades, riverfront festivals, and Beacon City School District sporting events. Over the course of the last year, we've handled 7,700 police calls. These include emergencies such as in-progress crimes, domestic disputes, and vehicle accidents, as well as quality of life issues such as noise and parking and traffic complaints. The department also takes proactive actions through rotating traffic enforcement assignments, as well as patrols of neighborhoods, apartment complexes, and along Main Street. We also pride ourselves on consistent community engagement through daily friendly interactions with the public and through participation in various events throughout the city. The first thing we'll address is the department staffing. The City of Beacon Police Department is ideally made up of 36 sworn officers. That includes the police chief, the lieutenants, the sergeants, detectives, and police officers, 2 administrative staff members, 2 full-time police dispatchers, 2 part-time weekend dispatchers, and we are, again, augmented in our staffing by the behavioral health specialist from Mental Health America and the part-time domestic violence advocate from Family Services. Entering 2025, we have multiple retirements and transfers have left the department significantly short-staffed, as we have currently 8 openings for police officers. Some of the highlights of our 2024 projects and initiatives. We added and hired a part-time dispatcher for our evening shift on the weekends. This has been vital because it allows an officer to be out on the street rather than working the desk, and we see our call demand increasing on the weekends with the city's pretty significant increase in nightlife, to be honest. We've taken steps to address some of our staffing concerns in 2024. Obviously, we have probably the most unprecedented staff crisis that we've had. With 8 current vacancies for police officers, the department's unable to fully staff one of its shifts without overtime. This has increased from 2 vacancies early in the year due to further retirements, transfers, and resignations, which have increased the number of openings throughout the year. In order to try to attract and retain more officers, we added a 5% cost of living increase to the department's negotiated salaries. Additionally, I've made changes to the background check process, which allows for us to more quickly eliminate unqualified candidates and move on to better options. The department does, however, anticipate continued challenges in the hiring process as participation in the county civil service test continues to lag, with only approximately 300 people sitting for the 2024 test for police officer. City will also be proposing a pilot program to attract transfers with recruitment bonuses and referral bonuses for current officers. Our 2025 projects and initiatives. For the 2025 year, the department's foregoing any significant cost increasing initiatives and focusing on increase in the salary and overtime and training lines to meet the needs created by the multiple vacancies and required promotions of 2024. There are, however, a few projects which are currently ongoing, which will go fully online in 2025. New in-car camera systems. In 2024, we leveraged the city's contract with Verizon to provide vehicle GPS systems in order to purchase new in-car cameras for all of our patrol vehicles. These cameras are easier to obtain and represent a significant savings, costing approximately $270 a month to equip the entire fleet of 12 vehicles versus over $7,000 to purchase just one system. Our parking ticket vendor, we recently signed a contract with a new vendor to provide handheld ticket writers and back-end citation management. Our previous vendor we had a long relationship with, but they were purchased by another company, and after that point, the department experienced a decline in services and quality with our handheld writers, both of which significantly impact our parking ticket enforcement. With the new vendor, we anticipate a savings of about $2,000 a year while also equipping officers with better equipment. You'll see the difference in this line item. It's due to the different fee structure between the two vendors. The current vendor takes its fees directly out of parking ticket revenue, while the new vendor is paid up front but then does not take a percentage of the revenue. Some major items changes proposed for 2025. Our overtime line, the proposed 25 budget recognizes the ongoing staffing challenges the department's facing. Despite ongoing recruitment and hiring efforts, the department remains significantly understaffed, which requires the use of police officers on overtime just to come for minimum shifts, even if nobody is off. In recognition of this fact, as well as recent salary increases, the proposed budget would increase overtime from 2023's proposed budget of $842,233 to $1,045,390, an increase of just over $200,000, or approximately 24%. This isn't quite a significant increase when you actually look at the adopted budget with the budget amendments that were just done. But overtime will remain high until a staffing crisis can be mitigated. Equipment. In 2025, we're cutting our equipment request by approximately $13,500, or nearly 54%, by focusing on only replacing some items that were already in use rather than making any significant purchases. In training, retirements and personnel changes in 2024 would result in the department having a new chief, 2 new lieutenants, a new detective sergeant, 2 new patrol sergeants, and 4 new detectives. Additionally, we have 8 vacancies for police officers, which the department is trying to fill. This has led to an unprecedented need for staff training. Much of it is mandatory. Every sergeant is required to attend the course in police supervision within a year of appointment, and every new police officer must attend a basic course for police officers. And our detectives need to be certified in a number of specialties, such as crime scene technician and child forensic interviews. As a result, we propose doubling the department's training budget from this year from $13,000 to $26,000. Maintenance is equipment, as mentioned above. The department has adopted a new in-car camera system, which drastically reduced the costs associated with that equipment. Our previous system included some cameras the department owned, which were over 10 years old and had no warranty coverage. As a result, we had to budget for repairs and possible emergency replacements of that expensive system. Under the new system, the cameras are under warranty for the length of contract, allowing us to reduce this line item by approximately 16%. That's the final for the highlights. Do you guys have any questions?
If I could just add one thing on the staffing and overtime. In addition to the 8 vacancies, 3 other people are not available to us for the shift. We have 1 in the academy. That person has to finish the academy and then go through field training, and then we have 2 out on injury. So we are down 30% of our staff. We have a contingent of 36 people, and we basically have 8 vacancies and 3 who are currently unavailable.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, I would, you mentioned I'm sorry, I'm not looking at it, a referral bonus and a signing bonus, I think.
We'll be talking about that in executive session
Okay.
with you tonight.
Well, I did want to ask, just in general, if there are things that are needed from like a support or other, like to help fill this gap. That's a difficult situation for people to operate under full-time.
It is. Like Chris mentioned, we are coming up with some proposals to try to make us an even more appealing department. There's contract negotiations coming up. 2025, the contract ends, so there's some room there as well.
Okay.
And we're also looking at the facilities, like the locker room is going to be redone this year over the winter so that, again, we can update some of the places that people work and make them look and operate better.
But as this current budget stands, it is not reflecting those proposed bonuses, is that correct? Or they are reflected here?
We should talk about it in executive session, please. We'll tell you about that more. The short answer is it is.
Okay.
It would cover it.
I see. And I believe this was covered perhaps in an email but not live, but the increase in the youth program budget line item, can you speak more about that?
Sure. That program was developed sort of as a hybrid program. Initially, it was all volunteer and it was funded through fundraising. The department is moving towards a model of kind of running it ourselves. We had 2 volunteers. They've spent a lot of time doing a great job building it up, but they're kind of ready to step back now. And so we're anticipating a decrease in fundraising because it's a little harder to have an officer out there, doing door-to-door fundraising versus a volunteer. So we're trying to move in a direction of just kind of taking over the program and running it ourselves.
And this has been the source of at least 2 officers, if not more.
2.
Yes.
Under the secondary language line item, can you remind me how many officers that $3,000 reflects?
3.
3.
And they all speak Spanish?
Yes.
Fluently. And they were tested to assess their language skills.
That's great that we have 3.
And they do translation.
Yeah, very regularly.
Yeah.
I think this was also addressed in a thread, but maybe not live, but the increases under body armor and also maybe related, maybe not, under less lethal. And can you also tell the public what less lethal means in terms of equipment?
Well, I'll start with the body armor. The reason the body armor line item has to go up is because of our need to replace vests every 5 years. That's per the manufacturer's guidelines and per the Department of Justice, which reimburses us for 50% of the cost of every new vest every 5 years. So there's some revenue that offsets that as well. And then also, when you have to hire a lot of people, these vests are custom fit. They're not an off-the-shelf product. So you have to buy a new one for every person that you hire. As far as the less lethal budget, that primarily impacts our less than lethal options, force options, such as the tasers and OC, which is pepper spray, more commonly known.
And the increase in the budget for that, are those items becoming more expensive? Are we getting more of them?
They are becoming more expensive. We're actually getting less of them, but our models that we have now are kind of coming to the end of their lives, so we're going to be trading in some and then purchasing new ones there.
And the firearms?
Firearms?
Firearms look like they're going up too?
Yes. I mean, you have an increase in the price of ammunition. We're not expanding into, anything significant there.
And we do buy the firearm for the new recruits that come here.
We don't have
Well,
existing ones?
we reissue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we reissue.
Yeah, but at a point, don't you have to change them out, right?
Yeah. Usually what we do is if somebody retires, we
Yes.
take that one out of service and bring a new one into service.
And other than the ammunition that you use for training, How much ammunition do you need if nobody's firing guns?
Well, you need a lot of ammunition for training. Every officer is accountable for every round that they fire. So the worst scenario you can have is a situation where you unfortunately do have to use your weapon and you don't use it properly.
Oh, no, I'm not questioning the training at all. I
Yeah.
was just curious, like, how much ammunition you purchase into,
So we
in
purchase,
addition to the
yeah, sure.
ammunition
So we
you buy.
purchase a lot. Number one, because we use a lot in training. That's like just a matter of fact, right? That you're shooting hundreds of rounds in an 8-hour training cycle, and we do that 4 times a year. And then additionally, because of the nature of the ammunition market, you kind of have to buy in bulk and have it ready, because there's been times when we've kind of been out of it and we can't get more because whatever is going on in the world, that becomes unavailable.
Thanks.
No problem.
I also saw a slight increase under detectives in prisoner transport. Are we transporting more prisoners than we used to?
So that comes from, if it's not transporting like a prisoner from here to the jail. That's like when the detectives have to go out somewhere far away. And we recently had a case, and that might even carry over into next year, where our detectives had to go to Pennsylvania, approximately 3 hours away, twice, to bring a prisoner back in a pretty significant case.
I think this is my last question. You mentioned that you've instituted some changes to the background check process that allows for sort of quicker analysis. Can you say more about what has shifted, if you're allowed to?
Sure, yeah.
I would recommend that discussion in executive session for personnel, if possible. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
And we can do that. We have an executive session tonight.
Can you repeat your question? I didn't.
Oh, I mean, I'll repeat the question since
Yeah.
it's just what is in the report. But the chief referenced some changes to the background checking process for new candidates,
Got
for
it.
potential hires.
We good?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Good
Thanks.
job.
Thank you, Tom.
Do you want me to just stay for the?
Yeah, if you want to stay, I think the next 2 items are pretty quick.
Am I all set?
Do you have anything else for Sue tonight for the
General
General.
questions?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Put this wire by me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Chris, you just want to cover the last 2
Yeah,
items, right?
so we have 2 projects that we're lining up for the wastewater treatment plant. The first is the dewatering system upgrade that we've been talking about for probably almost 2 years now. We did put that out to bid, and we got 5 bids back on the general contractor. It was broken into 2 sections, the general contractor, GC, and the electrical contractor. We had 5 bids on the GC and 1 on the electrical. They came in about for the GC, it was 1% above the engineer's estimate. For the electric, it was about 5% above the engineer's estimate. We have certified the low bidder of the GC as Blue Heron Construction, and their bid in the amount of $4,407,611 would be accepted if you vote next week. For American Electric, their bid was $604,000. Both of those entities, we checked references on very quickly. They had good references. They've actually worked on projects like this in the past together. So I think they might have actually, one of them might have called the other and said, hey, come bid on this. And if approved, we would issue the notice of award next week, and then they could begin the long process of ordering the long lead items, and probably start the construction next spring. The second bid is coming back at the end of the week on Friday. we hope to be able to certify a low bidder for the next meeting. This is a replacement of the administrative building's roof, and that's the building you see from Dennings Avenue behind the sunflowers and the fence. And the roof has been leaking. We've tried to patch it. It's at the end of its useful life. And so we have that out to bid. That includes putting in new insulation that brings us to building code, and hopefully we'll put in a 30 to 40-year roof. So we hope to have those bids back on Friday, and if there is a clear low bidder, we will bring that to you Monday night. And I'm sorry I don't have that. Of course, this is time sensitive because I'm trying to get the roof fixed before it starts snowing. So we would move really quickly on that. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Just thinking about maybe the potential for future rooftop solar. This wouldn't have any impact on that, right? This is
No,
just
it would allow it.
Probably make it easier.
We're thinking of, we're looking at that. We're going to be, we have these clean energy grants coming, and we're going to do an assessment of like an energy performance assessment of the building to see where we can swap out heat pumps for the oil burning system that we have. And then also, it's a very small roof, so the solar installation would have a minimal impact, but it would have some. So we will look at that as well.
And the admin building's in the shadow of the main building for part of the day, right? Or no?
I don't know. That would have to be looked at, because you want to, it's adjacent to the old incinerator. I'm not clear how much production you would lose from that shadow, but it is a much taller building. Let's see, that's north, so in the summer you'd lose some production.
But yeah, an analysis would tell us for real
Yes.
if it's worth it or not.
Yes.
All right, I think
And then we
need
have a
motion to
executive
Go into
session.
executive session to discuss personnel.
Yes.
Before we do that, I wanted to follow up because for the past two reports, I've mentioned two things specifically that I would like to see on the agenda, so I'm going to do that again here. Discussing a mobility or access plan to encourage non-personal vehicle use, as well as continuing our complete streets assessments. The second is, again, continued focusing on our housing priorities. I think perhaps the next one I would propose would be finish up the 2022 discussions on inclusionary zoning. So I'm saying this at this meeting as a specific ask to get things on the agenda, and of course I'd be happy to hear if other council members support a short-term focus on those initiatives or not.
I would second that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, with the inclusionary zoning, I was re-looking at that because it had come up in one of our other discussions, and I hadn't realized it had fully been 2 years since we last spoke to the expert on that. I know that there had been some follow-up questions that we hadn't quite had answered, so I'd love to return to that conversation. And with the mobility plan, I think that one is a little, requires a little more discussion to figure out what it actually, exactly it is that we want to look at, but I think it is a priority for me to at least start scoping what that looks like.
Yep, same.
I agree.
Okay. All right, we'll figure out how to get it onto agendas.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Motion to adjourn to executive session, and what's
For
the
personnel.
for personnel? And then what's the other thing? Then we don't do anything else?
And then we don't do
Okay.
Conduct no
And we'll
business
conduct
thereafter.
no further business.
And conduct no further business, thank
Okay.
you.
And then, Christian, I think you have the link for the executive session, am I correct?
Yeah, I do.
Very good, so
switch
we'll
over
see
to it
you,
now.
we'll see you on that in a
Motion
moment.
is from Amber, the second is whose?
Second.
By Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Great, thanks.
All right, see you all in a minute.
Thank
Good
you.
night.